Some people build walls to protect the ones they love. But sometimes, those walls become prisons. Leonard Ashford was one of the richest men in the city. He owned buildings, hotels, shopping centers. His name was in newspapers. His face was on magazine covers. People called him a genius. They said he had the golden touch. Everything he touched turned into money. But there was one thing his money could not fix. One thing that kept him awake at night. One thing that made him feel completely helpless. His daughter, Mira. Mira was born on a rainy Tuesday in March. It should have been the happiest day of Leonard's life. And for a few hours, it was. He held his wife's hand. He watched the nurses wrap his baby girl in a soft pink blanket. He cried tears of joy. But joy does not last forever. Sometimes, it disappears in the blink of an eye. His wife started bleeding. The doctors rushed in. Machines started beeping. Leonard was pushed out of the room. He stood in the hallway, holding his newborn daughter, listening to the chaos behind the closed door. 20 minutes later, a doctor came out. His face said everything. Leonard did not need to hear the words. His wife was gone. In one moment, Leonard became both a father and a widower. He gained a daughter and lost his soulmate. The universe gave him something precious and took away something irreplaceable at the same time. But the tragedy did not end there. 3 weeks later, the doctors discovered something else. Mira's eyes were not responding to light. They ran tests. They consulted specialists. They used words Leonard did not understand. But one word was clear enough: blind. His daughter would never see his face. She would never see the sunset. She would never see the flowers in the garden or the stars in the night sky. She would live her entire life in darkness. Leonard blamed himself. He blamed God. He blamed the doctors. He blamed everyone and everything. But blame does not change reality. Blame does not heal wounds. It only makes them deeper. So Leonard did what he knew best. He used his money. He built a fortress around his daughter. He hired the best tutors, the best caregivers, the best doctors. He bought the biggest house in the safest neighborhood. He installed every safety feature he could find: motion sensors, soft carpets, rounded furniture corners, no stairs, no sharp edges, no risks. He wanted to protect Mira from everything, from pain, from failure, from disappointment, from a world that would never understand her. But protection can become a cage. And love can become control. Mira grew up in silence. She had everything a child could want: expensive toys, beautiful clothes, a room full of books in Braille. But she had no friends, no adventures, no freedom. Her father decided everything for her: what she would eat, what she would wear, what she would learn, what she would not learn. Music was on the list of things she would not learn. There was a grand piano in the east wing of the house. It had belonged to Leonard's wife. She used to play it every evening. The whole house would fill with melodies. Leonard would sit in his chair, close his eyes, and listen. Those were the happiest moments of his life. But after she died, the piano became a symbol of everything he had lost. He covered it with a white cloth. He locked the room. He forbade anyone from touching it. And he decided that Mira would never learn music. What was the point? She could not read sheet music. She could not see the keys. Music would only remind her of what she could not do. It would only bring her pain. At least, that is what Leonard told himself. Mira was 9 years old when Ruth came into their lives. Ruth was 63. She had silver hair, wrinkled hands, and tired eyes. But there was something warm about her. Something kind. Something that made people trust her instantly. She had been a piano teacher for 40 years. She had taught hundreds of students. Some of them became famous musicians. Some of them played in concert halls around the world. Teaching music was not just her job. It was her purpose. It was her reason for living. But life is not always fair. Sometimes, it takes everything from you when you least expect it. Ruth's husband got sick 5 years ago. Cancer. The treatments were expensive. The hospital bills piled up. Ruth sold her house. She sold her car. She sold her piano. She spent every penny she had trying to save him. He died anyway. Ruth was left with nothing. No home. No savings. No family. At 63 years old, she had to start over from zero. She found a job listing in the newspaper. A wealthy family needed a housekeeper. The pay was decent. The job came with a room. Ruth applied immediately. She did not care about her pride anymore. She just needed to survive. Leonard hired her because she seemed honest and hardworking. He did not know about her past. He did not know she was a piano teacher. He did not ask. And she did not tell. On her first day at the Ashford house, Ruth noticed two things. First, she noticed the covered piano in the locked room. She could see it through the glass doors. A beautiful grand piano, sitting in darkness, gathering dust. It broke her heart. Second, she noticed Mira. The little girl was sitting alone in the garden. Her eyes were closed. Her fingers were moving in the air, tracing invisible patterns. And she was humming, a soft, broken melody, like she was trying to remember a song she had heard long ago but could not quite recall. Ruth stood at the window and watched. Something stirred inside her chest, a feeling she had not felt in years, a feeling of purpose. She did not know it yet, but her life was about to change. And so was Mira's. Some people believe in fate. They believe that certain people are meant to meet, that the universe has a plan, that nothing happens by accident. Ruth never believed in fate before, but watching that little blind girl humming alone in the garden, she started to wonder. Maybe she was not here just to clean floors and wash dishes. Maybe she was here for something more. Maybe she was here to give this child something no amount of money could buy. The gift of music. But teaching Mira would mean breaking the rules. It would mean going behind Leonard's back. It would mean risking everything. Ruth looked at the dusty piano. She looked at the lonely girl. She looked at her own wrinkled hands that had not touched a piano in 5 years. Some risks are worth taking. She just did not know yet how high the price would be. 3 weeks passed. Ruth cleaned the floors. She washed the dishes. She dusted the furniture. She did everything a housekeeper was supposed to do. But her eyes kept wandering to two places: the locked piano room and the lonely girl in the garden. Mira spent most of her days alone. The tutors came and went. They taught her mathematics, history, science, languages. Her brain was filled with facts and figures, but her heart remained empty. Ruth noticed something else about Mira. The girl was always listening. Her ears would follow sounds like other people's eyes would follow movement. The footsteps of the staff walking through the hallways. Mira lived in a world of sounds, and she was hungry for more. One afternoon, Ruth was cleaning near the east wing. She heard soft footsteps behind her. She turned around and saw Mira standing in the hallway. The girl's hand was pressed against the glass door of the piano room. Her face was tilted toward the covered piano inside. Ruth watched her for a moment. Then she walked closer. "What are you doing here, child?" Mira did not move. Her fingers traced the cold glass. "I come here sometimes," she whispered. "I like to imagine what it sounds like." Ruth felt her heart crack. "You have never heard it?" Mira shook her head. "Father says it belonged to my mother. He says it makes him too sad. Nobody is allowed to touch it." Ruth looked through the glass at the dusty piano. She thought about all the music trapped inside it, all the melodies waiting to be set free. It felt like a crime, like burying something alive. "What if," Ruth said slowly, "someone played it for you, just once, just so you could hear?" Mira's face changed. Hope flickered in her sightless eyes. But then, it faded just as quickly. "Father would be angry. Your father is at work. He will not be home for hours." Mira hesitated. Her small fingers trembled against the glass. Ruth could see the war inside her, the desire fighting against the fear, the longing battling the obedience. Finally, Mira spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Just once?" Ruth smiled. "Just once." She found the key in the storage room. The lock clicked open. The door creaked as it swung inward. The room smelled like dust and forgotten memories. Ruth pulled the white cloth off the piano. Underneath, the wood was still beautiful. Dark mahogany. Polished keys. A little out of tune, but nothing that could not be fixed. She sat down on the bench. Her fingers hovered over the keys. It had been 5 years since she last played. 5 years since she sold her own piano to pay for hospital bills. 5 years since music left her life. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear, from something else. She pressed the first key. The note rang out through the silent room. Pure, clear, alive. Mira gasped. Her whole body went still, like she was afraid to move. Afraid that if she breathed too loud, the sound would disappear. Ruth played a simple lullaby. Nothing complicated. Just a gentle melody that flowed like water. Her fingers remembered the movements, even after all these years. Muscle memory. The body never forgets what the heart truly loves. When the last note faded, Ruth looked at Mira. The girl was crying. Tears were streaming down her cheeks. But she was smiling. A real smile. The kind that comes from somewhere deep inside. "It is beautiful," Mira whispered. "It is the most beautiful thing I have ever heard." Ruth felt tears in her own eyes. She had played for hundreds of students over the years. She had performed in recitals and concerts, but she had never seen anyone react like this, like the music had touched their soul. "Would you like to try?" Ruth asked. Mira's smile vanished. I cannot see the keys. You do not need to see them." Ruth guided Mira to the bench. She took the girl's small hands and placed them on the keys. Mira's fingers were trembling. "Music is not about seeing," Ruth said softly. "Music is about feeling. Close your eyes. Well, you know what I mean. Just focus on what you feel under your fingers. Each key is different. Each one has its own voice." She pressed Mira's finger down on a key. A note sang out. "That is middle C, the center of everything. Remember how it feels. Remember where it is." Mira pressed the key again. And again. Each time. Her face grew more confident. Ruth showed her the next key. Then the next. One by one, Mira memorized the position of each note. Not by sight, by touch, by feeling, by the map she was building inside her mind. That first lesson lasted 2 hours. By the end, Mira could play a simple scale. Just 8 notes, up and down. Nothing special, but to Mira, it was everything. "Can we do this again?" she asked. Her voice was desperate, hungry, alive in a way Ruth had never heard before. Ruth knew she should say no. She knew the risk. If Leonard found out, she would lose her job. She would be back on the streets. At 63 years old, with no savings and no family. That could mean the end for her. But looking at Mira's face, Ruth could not say no. This girl had been locked in darkness her whole life. Not just the darkness of blindness, the darkness of loneliness, the darkness of a father who loved her but did not understand her. Music could be her light. "Tomorrow," Ruth said. "Same time. But this must be our secret. Your father cannot know." Mira nodded eagerly. "I promise. I will not tell anyone." And so the secret lessons began. Every afternoon, while Leonard was at work, Ruth and Mira would meet in the piano room. Ruth taught her scales, chords, simple melodies. Mira absorbed everything like a sponge. Her fingers learned faster than any student Ruth had ever taught. Within a month, Mira could play simple songs. Within 2 months, she was playing beginner classical pieces. Within 3 months, she moved to intermediate level. Ruth was amazed. Mira's blindness was not a weakness. It was a strength. Because she could not see, her other senses were sharper. Her hearing was extraordinary. She could detect the smallest difference in pitch, the tiniest mistake in rhythm. Her touch was sensitive. She could feel the weight of each key, the vibration of each string. But more than that, Mira had something special. Something that could not be taught. She had soul. When she played, she did not just press keys. She spoke through the music. She poured her loneliness into the notes, her longing, her dreams, her pain. Ruth would sit beside her and listen with tears in her eyes. This was what music was meant to be. Not just sound, emotion, connection, truth. 6 months passed. Mira could now play Chopin, Debussy, Mozart, pieces that took most students years to master. She played them with a depth that professional musicians would envy. The piano room became their sanctuary, their secret world. For 1 hour every day, Mira was not the blind girl locked in a mansion. She was an artist, a musician, a person, with purpose and passion. And Ruth was not a homeless housekeeper. She was a teacher again. She had found her purpose again. But secrets have a way of coming out. The truth cannot stay hidden forever. And the longer you hide it, the harder it falls when it finally breaks free. Neither of them knew it yet. But their secret had an expiration date. And it was coming. Soon. Very soon. It was a Thursday afternoon in October. The leaves outside were turning gold and red. The air was getting colder. Winter was coming. But inside the piano room, everything was warm. Mira was playing Chopin. Nocturne, in E-flat major. One of the most beautiful pieces ever written. Her fingers moved across the keys, like water flowing over stones. Smooth, natural, effortless. Ruth sat in the corner, eyes closed, listening. After 6 months of lessons, she still got goosebumps every time Mira played. The girl had a gift. A rare, precious gift. The kind that comes along once in a generation. The music filled the room. It floated through the hallways. It seeped under doors and through windows. It wrapped around the whole house like a gentle embrace. Neither of them heard the front door open. Leonard was supposed to be at work until 7. He had meetings scheduled all afternoon, but his last meeting got canceled. His business partner was sick, so Leonard decided to come home early. Maybe he would spend some time with Mira, read to her, talk to her, try to connect with her like he always meant to but never quite managed to do. He stepped into the house. He handed his coat to the butler. He was about to walk upstairs when he heard it. Music, piano music. Coming from the east wing. Leonard froze. His blood turned cold. For a moment, he thought he was imagining things. That room had been locked for 9 years. Nobody had touched that piano since his wife died. The music had to be coming from somewhere else. A radio. A television. Something. But he knew that melody. He knew it deep in his bones. His wife used to play it every Sunday evening. Chopin, her favorite composer. Leonard walked toward the east wing. His footsteps were slow, heavy, like he was walking through water. The music grew louder. With every step, more beautiful, more painful. He reached the glass doors. They were open. The white cloth was gone. And there, sitting at his wife's piano, was his blind daughter. Mira's eyes were closed. Her face was peaceful. Her fingers danced across the keys with a skill that seemed impossible. She was not just playing the notes. She was living them, breathing them, becoming them. Standing beside her was Ruth, the housekeeper, the woman Leonard had hired to clean his floors. She was watching Mira with tears in her eyes, a proud smile on her face. Leonard felt something crack inside his chest. A wave of emotions hit him all at once. Shock, confusion, Anger, betrayal, fear, so much fear. The music stopped. Mira had sensed something. Her head turned toward the door. Her face went pale. "Father?" Ruth spun around. When she saw Leonard standing there, her smile disappeared. She knew. She knew what was coming. Leonard stepped into the room. His hands were shaking. His jaw was tight. He looked at Ruth with eyes full of fire. "What is this?" Ruth opened her mouth to speak, but Leonard did not give her a chance. "What have you done?" "Mr. Ashford, please let me explain." "Explain what?" Leonard's voice was rising. "Explain how you went behind my back? How you broke into a locked room? How you put my daughter at that piano when I specifically said she was not to learn music?" Mira stood up from the bench. "Father, it is not her fault. I asked her to teach me. I wanted to learn. I needed to learn." Leonard looked at his daughter. His face softened for just a moment. Then it hardened again. "You do not know what you need. You are a child, and you are—" He stopped himself. But Mira finished the sentence for him. "Blind. I am blind. Is that what you were going to say?" Leonard said nothing. The silence was louder than any words. Mira took a step toward her father. "Do you know what it feels like? To live in darkness every single day? To never see colors? To never see faces? To never see anything at all?" Her voice was trembling, but she kept going. "Music is the only thing that makes me feel alive. When I play, I forget that I am blind. I forget that I am different. I feel normal. I feel free. Ruth gave me that. She gave me something no amount of money could ever buy." Leonard stared at his daughter. He had never heard her speak like this. With such passion, such fire, such strength. But fear is a powerful thing. It clouds the mind. It twists the heart. It makes people do things they regret. Leonard turned to Ruth. "Pack your things. You are fired. I want you out of this house within the hour." "Father, no!" Mira screamed. "This is not your decision," Leonard said coldly. "Go to your room. Please," Ruth said quietly. "Punish me if you must. But do not take the music away from her. You do not understand what she has. She is gifted. Truly gifted. I have taught hundreds of students in my life. I have never seen anyone like her." Leonard laughed bitterly. "Gifted? She is blind. What future does she have in music? What concert hall will let a blind girl perform? You have given her false hope. You have set her up for disappointment, for heartbreak." Ruth shook her head. "You are wrong. Music does not care about eyes. Music cares about soul. And your daughter has more soul than anyone I have ever met." "Enough!" Leonard pointed toward the door. "Get out. Now." Ruth looked at Mira. The girl was crying. Her small body was shaking with sobs. Ruth wanted to hug her, to comfort her, to tell her everything would be okay. But she could not lie. She did not know if things would be okay. "I am sorry," Ruth whispered. "I am so sorry." She walked past Leonard without looking at him. She went to her small room in the staff quarters. She packed her few belongings into a worn suitcase. The same suitcase she had arrived with 6 months ago. 20 minutes later, she stood at the front door. The butler handed her a small envelope. Her final paycheck. She took it, without a word. Outside, the sun was setting. The sky was painted orange and pink, beautiful colors that Ruth barely noticed. Her mind was back in the piano room, back with the girl who had brought music into her life again. She walked down the long driveway. At the gate, she turned around for one last look at the mansion. Somewhere inside, Mira was alone, crying, heartbroken. Ruth had wanted to save her. Instead, she had made things worse. The gate closed behind her. Ruth walked into the cold evening with nothing but a suitcase and a broken heart. Back inside the mansion, Leonard locked the piano room door. He pocketed the key. He told the staff that no one was to mention music in this house ever again. Then he went to check on his daughter. Mira's room was empty. He found her sitting in the hallway outside the piano room, her back against the locked door, her knees pulled up to her chest, her face buried in her arms. She was not crying anymore. She was just sitting there, silent, still, like something inside her had died. Leonard stood there watching her. He wanted to say something, to explain why he did what he did, to make her understand that he was only trying to protect her. But the words would not come. He turned and walked away. His footsteps echoed through the empty hallway. He told himself he had done the right thing. He told himself Mira would forget about the piano in time. She would move on. She would find other things to fill her days. But deep down, in a place he did not want to look, Leonard knew the truth. He had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The first week was the hardest. Mira refused to speak. She sat in her room all day, staring at nothing. She would not eat unless someone forced her. She would not respond when people talked to her. She had become a ghost, living inside a little girl's body. Leonard tried to act normal. He went to work. He attended meetings. He signed contracts. He made money. But every night when he came home, he would walk past Mira's room and feel his heart sink. The silence inside was louder than any scream. He told himself she would get over it. Children are resilient. They bounce back. In a few weeks, she would forget about the piano. She would find new interests, new hobbies. Life would return to normal. But weeks passed, and nothing changed. The tutors came as usual. But Mira sat there like a statue. She did not answer their questions. She did not do her assignments. She just stared straight ahead, with empty eyes. One by one, the tutors started quitting. They said they could not teach someone who was not there. Her body was present, but her mind was somewhere else. Leonard hired a child psychologist, a woman with gray hair and kind eyes who specialized in difficult cases. She spent 3 hours with Mira behind closed doors. When she came out, her face was troubled. "Your daughter is experiencing severe depression," she told Leonard. "She has lost something that gave her life meaning. Without it, she does not see the point of anything." Leonard frowned. She is 9 years old. What could possibly give her life meaning? The psychologist looked at him with sad eyes. "Music, Mr. Ashford. Music gave her life meaning, and you took it away." Leonard felt anger rise in his chest. "I was protecting her. I was keeping her from getting hurt. Were you?" The psychologist tilted her head. "Or were you protecting yourself?" Were you protecting yourself?" Leonard did not answer. He paid the psychologist and sent her away. He did not call her back. Another month passed. Mira started losing weight. The cook made all her favorite foods: chocolate cake, pasta, ice cream. But Mira barely touched anything. She would take a few bites, then push the plate away. At night, Leonard would hear sounds from her room. Not crying. Something worse. Humming. Soft, broken humming. The same melody over and over. The Chopin piece she had played the day everything fell apart. She was trying to hold on to the music any way she could. Leonard started having nightmares. In his dreams, he would see his wife sitting at the piano. She would be playing that same Chopin piece. Then, she would turn around and look at him. But her face was not happy. It was disappointed, sad, heartbroken. "Why did you lock away the music?" she would ask. "Why did you lock away our daughter?" Leonard would wake up in cold sweat. He would sit in the darkness of his bedroom, staring at the ceiling, asking himself the same question. Why did he do it? Why did he fire Ruth? Why did he lock the piano room? Why did he take away the only thing that made his daughter happy? He told himself it was love. He told himself it was protection. He told himself a father knows best. But deep down, he knew the truth. It was fear. Pure, selfish fear. He was afraid of losing Mira the way he lost his wife. He was afraid that if Mira chased her dreams, the world would crush her. He was afraid that hope would lead to disappointment, that joy would lead to pain. So he locked away the hope. He locked away the joy. He thought he was keeping Mira safe, but he was only keeping her prisoner. One night in December, Leonard came home late from work. The house was quiet. The staff had gone to bed. He walked through the dark hallways, thinking about nothing in particular. Then he heard it, a soft sound, coming from the east wing. He walked toward it. His heart was beating fast. He did not know what he would find. He found Mira. She was sitting on the floor outside the locked piano room. Her forehead was pressed against the door. Her hands were flat against the wood, and she was crying. Soft, quiet sobs that shook her whole body. Leonard stopped a few feet away. He watched his daughter in the dim light. She looked so small, so fragile, so broken. "Mira?" he whispered. She did not move. She just kept crying against the door. Leonard walked closer. He sat down on the cold floor beside her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was Mira's quiet sobs. Finally, Leonard found his voice. "What are you doing here? Go." Mira's answer was barely audible. "I can still hear it. When I press my ear against the door, I can hear the echo, like the music is still inside, waiting for me." Leonard felt something break inside his chest, something he had been holding together for 9 years. "I miss her," Mira continued. "I miss Ruth. She made me feel like I was not broken. She made me feel like I could do something beautiful, like I was not just a blind girl locked in a big house, like I was somebody." Tears started falling down Leonard's face. He had not cried since his wife's funeral. He had locked away his tears, the same way he locked away the piano. He thought being strong meant never showing weakness. But sitting here on the cold floor, watching his daughter fall apart, he realized the truth. He was not strong. He was terrified. He had been terrified since the day his wife died. "I am sorry," he whispered. The words felt strange in his mouth. He had never said them before. Not to Mira. Not to anyone. Mira turned her head slightly. "For what?" "For everything." Leonard's voice cracked. "For locking away the piano. For firing Ruth. For trying to protect you from life, instead of letting you live it." He reached out and took his daughter's hand. It was cold, thin, fragile. "Your mother would be ashamed of me," he said. "She loved music more than anything. She would have wanted you to play. She would have been so proud of you." Mira squeezed his hand. "You really think so?" "I know so." Leonard wiped his tears with his free hand. "I have spent 9 years trying to keep you safe. But I realize now that I was not keeping you safe. I was keeping you small. I was so scared of losing you that I forgot to let you live." They sat there together in the dark hallway. Father and daughter, 2 broken people, holding hands outside a locked door. After a long silence, Mira spoke again. "Do you think Ruth is okay?" Leonard felt guilt wash over him. He had not thought about Ruth since the day he fired her. He had pushed her out of his mind, like she never existed. "I do not know," he admitted. "She was kind to me," Mira said. "She did not see me as broken. She saw me as someone with a gift. No one ever looked at me that way before." Leonard closed his eyes. He thought about all the doctors and tutors and caregivers he had hired over the years, all the money he had spent, all the experts he had consulted, and it was a 63-year-old housekeeper who finally saw his daughter. Really saw her. "I will find her," Leonard said suddenly. The words came out before he could stop them. But once they were out, he knew They were right. Mira lifted her head. Really? Yes. Leonard stood up. He helped Mira to her feet. I will find her. And I will bring her back. I promise. It was a promise he intended to keep, no matter what it took. Leonard started searching the next morning. He hired a private investigator. He called every shelter in the city. He visited churches, community centers, soup kitchens. He showed Ruth's picture to hundreds of people. Most of them shook their heads. They had never seen her. Days turned into weeks. Leonard refused to give up. Every morning, he would go out searching. Every night, he would come home, empty-handed. Mira would be waiting for him at the door, her face full of hope. And every night, he had to watch that hope fade away. Maybe she left the city, the private investigator suggested. Maybe she went somewhere else, started a new life. Leonard shook his head. Keep looking. She is out there somewhere. 3 weeks into the search, Leonard got a call. The investigator had found something. A woman, matching Ruth's description, had been seen at a homeless shelter downtown. She had been staying there for the past 2 months. Leonard drove there immediately. His hands were shaking on the steering wheel. His heart was pounding in his chest. He did not know what he would say. He did not know if Ruth would even want to see him. The shelter was a small brick building on a quiet street. Inside, the air smelled like soup and old blankets. Rows of beds lined the walls. People sat on chairs, staring at nothing. Others stood in line for food. Leonard asked the front desk for Ruth. The woman pointed toward a corner of the room. There she was, sitting on a small bed, reading a worn paperback book. Her silver hair was thinner than before. Her face had more lines. She looked older, tired, defeated. Leonard walked toward her. Each step felt heavier than the last. When he reached her bed, Ruth looked up. Her eyes widened. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ruth's face hardened. What are you doing here? Leonard took a deep breath. I came to apologize. Ruth laughed bitterly. Apologize? You fired me in front of your daughter. You threw me out with nothing. I have been living in shelters for 3 months. And now? You want to apologize? Yes. Leonard's voice was quiet, humble. I was wrong. I was scared. I thought I was protecting Mira. But I was only hurting her. Hurting both of you. Ruth stared at him. Her eyes were searching his face, looking for lies, looking for tricks. But all she saw was a broken man standing in front of her. How is she? Ruth asked quietly. How is Mira? Leonard felt tears prick his eyes. She is not good. She stopped eating. She stopped talking. She sits outside the piano room every night, pressing her ear against the door. She says she can still hear the echo of the music inside. Ruth's face crumbled. The anger melted away. In its place was pain. Pure, raw pain. That poor child, she whispered. Leonard knelt down in front of her. He took her wrinkled hands in his. Ruth flinched but did not pull away. I need you to come back, Leonard said. Not as a housekeeper, as Mira's teacher, her official piano teacher. I will pay you whatever you want. I will give you your own room in the house. I will support her music education in every way possible. Ruth shook her head slowly. Why should I trust you? You could change your mind again. You could throw me out the moment things get difficult. I will not. Leonard's voice was firm. I promise you. I have seen what life is like without music in that house. It is not life at all. It is just existence. My daughter deserves more than that. And I was too blind to see it. He paused. The word hung in the air between them. Blind. Such a heavy word. Such a loaded word. Mira taught me something, Leonard continued. She taught me that being blind is not about the eyes. I have had perfect vision my whole life, but I could not see what was right in front of me. I could not see my daughter's gift. I could not see her pain. I could not see that I was the one keeping her in darkness. Ruth was crying now. Tears rolled down her weathered cheeks. She had spent 3 months in shelters, wondering if she had made a mistake, wondering if she should have kept quiet, wondering if Mira was okay. Please, Leonard whispered. Come home. She needs you. Ruth wiped her tears. She looked at Leonard for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, I will come back, but not for you. For her. Leonard smiled through his tears. That is all I ask. The reunion was everything Leonard had hoped for. When Mira heard Ruth's voice in the hallway, she came running. She crashed into Ruth's arms and held on like she would never let go. Both of them were crying. Both of them were laughing. Leonard stood in the doorway, watching. He had never seen his daughter this happy, this alive, this whole. He unlocked the piano room that same day. The white cloth was removed for good. Ruth tuned the piano herself. And when the first notes rang out through the house, it felt like a resurrection, like something dead had come back to life. The lessons resumed. But this time, there were no secrets. Leonard would sit in the corner of the room, listening. At first, he felt like an intruder. But slowly, he began to understand. He began to hear what Ruth had heard. The gift, the soul, the magic. 1 year later, Ruth told Leonard about a concert, a charity event for visually impaired children. They were looking for young performers. She wanted Mira to audition. Leonard hesitated. Old fears crept back into his mind. What if she failed? What if people judged her? What if the world was cruel? But then he looked at Mira. She was standing at the piano, her fingers resting on the keys. Her face was calm, confident, ready. Let her try, Ruth said softly. Trust her. Leonard nodded. Okay, let her try. Mira auditioned. She got accepted immediately. The organizers could not believe what they heard. A 10-year-old blind girl playing Chopin, like a seasoned professional. They gave her the closing spot, the most important performance of the night. The concert hall was packed on the big night. 500 people filled the seats. Donors, musicians, families, journalists. The lights were bright. The crowd was buzzing. Leonard sat in the front row. His hands were sweating. His heart was racing. He had never been this nervous in his life. Not even when he closed his biggest business deal. Ruth walked Mira onto the stage. The girl was wearing a simple white dress. Her hair was tied back with a ribbon. She looked small under the bright lights. Small, but unafraid. Ruth guided her to the piano bench. She whispered something in Mira's ear. Then she stepped back and walked off stage. Mira sat alone. 500 people stared at her. Silence filled the hall. She placed her fingers on the keys. She took a deep breath, and she began to play. The music that poured out was not just sound. It was a story. A story of loneliness and longing. Of darkness and light. Of secrets and sacrifice. Of a little blind girl who found her voice through ivory keys. Leonard watched his daughter through blurry eyes. Tears streamed down his face. He did not bother wiping them. He just let them fall. When the final note faded, there was a moment of complete silence. Then the audience erupted. People jumped to their feet. They clapped. They cheered. They cried. Leonard looked at Ruth. She was standing at the side of the stage, wiping her own tears. Thank you, he mouthed. Ruth smiled and pointed at Mira. The girl was bowing to the audience, a smile brighter than any spotlight shining on her face. Leonard understood then. He had spent his life building an empire of money, but it was a penniless piano teacher who taught him what true wealth looked like. It looked like his daughter on that stage. Happy, free, alive. Some gifts cannot be bought. They can only be given, and received, and shared with the world.